can do this as many times. Oh, good morning, everybody. Today I've got Charlene Gaskill with me, and she is a wonderful hairdresser from Opotiki. So any of you people needing a haircut after lockdown, look her up in Whakatane. Good to give her a little plug for her business. Today, Charlene and I are going to have a chat about lots of things around nutrition. But first of all, Charlene, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Obviously, I'm Charlene. I'm 39, almost 40 year old, and I am a mum of a little boy who's 3. Just been a stay-at-home mum for the last 3 years, but getting back into work shortly, obviously as a hairdresser back in Whakatane. And yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Shah. So, well, you and I have known each other for a few years, haven't we?
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I probably met you when I moved to Rotorua in 2008, 2009. I might have even been around that time anyway.
I was trying to work it out myself. I was thinking, gosh, I must have known you for 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
So,
probably 2007, around that time. Yeah, a good 10 years anyway.
So we've known each other for a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
So you contacted me a little while ago, and we had a bit of a chat about your health and that you wanted to lose a little bit of weight. You've got your young son, Alistair.
Yeah.
And so you decided to start on this bit of a journey. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the background to that?
All right. Well, I've always been fairly active throughout my adult life. I've always sort of had fits and starts of, really doing exercise and not exercise. I've always kind of struggled with my weight. I've never been a really little person. Genetically, I probably won't ever be either. But I always liked that feeling of, just being fit and strong and healthy and having energy. Obviously, having a child a little bit later in life, sleep deprivation has played a major part of motivation and energy. And I guess with stress as well, different stuff in your life, or, everyone has stuff going on. I just found myself just really low in energy and tired all the time. Obviously, in the past, I've tried various things. I've worked with you with exercise, Sue, especially when I was in Rotorua, and I was, did a lot of that, and that was good. But I think I kind of just felt my weight was creeping up, and I thought I was eating a fairly okay diet, but just something wasn't right. So I went to the doctors, had some blood tests, and things weren't bad, but I just felt like there was something that I needed a little bit more information on. And obviously knowing you for so long and obviously knew your background, just decided that now I just wanted to have the energy to keep up with Alistair. And yeah, I needed to talk to someone I guess I trusted as well, and that was you.
Well, thanks for that. So do you want to explain a little bit about what happened when we went through your blood tests, or the difference between how I looked at your blood tests and the sort of information you got from your GP? Because I look at them from a nutritional perspective, not from a disease perspective. I just want to put that out there for people.
Yeah.
You want to tell us how that felt, or, what effect that had for you?
Okay. Well, basically, I had 2 years ago, I went to the doctors, obviously some other personal stuff, and just said I was tired. And part of that was, and I had started menstruating quite early on after having Alistair as well, and I was solely breastfeeding. And I kind of got told it was part of motherhood, just what happens. You're just tired, and time, it will pass in time. And they obviously did the basic blood tests. They came back as everything seemed to be normal. Went again the next year, struck a really good doctor, had some blood tests. They seemed all right. And kind of was like, had a little bit of a chat with her, and then I wanted to go back and see that doctor, but unfortunately she went off on maternity leave. So I saw another one, had some more blood tests. They said it was fine. And then I just was like, something's not adding up. So that doctor that I kind of clicked with was back. So I went in and saw her after kind of reaching out to you about the blood tests. And I guess this doctor's like quite open to a little bit of alternative and looking at things from a different angle, not just your standard blood tests. So she was quite open to help getting these more intensive blood tests that you like people that have done, to get a clearer picture on the individual. So we got them done, and going through them with you just made it a little bit more clear about what was actually going on with my system. And it kind of explained a little bit more about why I was so tired. And, my weight creeping up. And so, yeah, it was really interesting from that point of view. So definitely a lot more in depth, and from a nutritional point of view too, because it wasn't just a medical thing. I was wanting to get more information on what I should and shouldn't be eating for me, I guess, because I have in the past tried various diets, and you try and do things yourself, and and like I said, I've never really been a really unhealthy eater, but obviously just eating the wrong types of food for my body type, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's really interesting. I want to give a heads up to your GP, because she was fabulous to work with and really fantastic from my point of view to work with. So I really do want to give her a big heads up for supporting this for you.
Yeah.
So
can I just say, so with her also, it wasn't just the blood test. She's definitely into that, setting up a support network in the journey or the process of, how I go about changing stuff, down to exercise and, a little bit of the, I guess, the mental health side of things as well, and making sure that your mindset's all good. And so she was quite open to, I think that's partly why she was open to, doing this extensive blood test. And there was a lot of stuff that I could get done that was, funded. But just, I guess people don't go on and ask, they just, yeah. So she's open to the bigger picture, the whole picture, not just what you're eating and what you're not eating.
And that's a really important point, and that's something that I particularly wanted to talk to you about today. But just before we start talking about mindset and support systems, because I'd really like your perspective on how that's different now than it has been in the past, I just wanted to touch briefly on the comment you made about understanding the blood test, understanding what's going on in your body. Because one of the things I get asked all the time, or told all the time, is, look, I don't really care. I don't really want to know the science. I don't really want to know the why. I just want to know. I just want you to tell me what to do. Just tell me what to eat. Just write me out a diet. And then it's, can you give me some recipes? And then it's, I don't like that. Can you give me another meal choice? And really, I think that's been part of the problem that we've had over the last 30 or 40 years is people just keep looking for what to do without actually any understanding of why they need to do it and why the way that food reacts in your body is so, so important. And it is different for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so understanding, like, I guess the blood tests I had before contacting you through the doctor, which was just a basic, we don't have my blood pressure taken. I had some bloods and my blood pressure was up, was quite high. Also, my cholesterol was quite high. And that particular doctor, not the one I've had a really good dealing with, another one, I had to really ask her a lot of questions whilst I was in there, what the high cholesterol meant, like to explain to me, and she just wasn't very forthcoming in the information. So so you get these little bits and pieces from those basic blood tests that the doctors do, but then when you explain, the glucose, the insulin, and making sure you fast and what all that does for the individual system, everyone's individual system, just it made a whole lot more sense to me from a food point of view, I guess. Not just, oh, you've got high cholesterol, don't drink alcohol, don't eat fats, like kind of stuff. Like, yeah. I just felt like I didn't get any information. I had to really try and think of a way to ask the doctor to get information out of them in regards to that. Whereas, doing the blood test with you, which was more intensive, it just made it a whole lot clearer and easier to understand for me. Anyway, it was. So, and like you say, what different types of food do to your system and how your body breaks them down and uses them for, whether it's energy or, burning fat or, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, just made a whole lot more sense to me when you explained it. I guess because we had a bigger range of things that were tested as well. I don't know.
Yes, and we were able to look at the results as a whole. So instead of just taking a cholesterol marker and saying, oh gosh, your total cholesterol is a bit high, don't eat fat, which is a very simplistic view, we were able to take a whole lot of markers and say, well, this, it's this that may be driving your cholesterol, and it's not actually your total cholesterol that matters, it's your triglycerides. And what makes your triglycerides get high is what we call your glucose tolerance and your personal fat threshold, your insulin sensitivity. And everybody is different. We're all genetically different. So what one person can eat and look perfectly fine, somebody else will have problems with. And so that's what we were able to do with you and explain with you.
Yes.
I think that really helps.
Yeah, definitely.
So one of the things I'd really like to talk to you about is mindset. Because it seems to me that most people are like you. They've spent their whole lives trying to eat well, exercising, maybe intermittently, but definitely really aware of the importance of healthy eating and exercise for health. And yet, despite doing this, weight creeps up, other issues creep in. And it seems to me that we've been trying to do this as individuals, and it's quite a hard thing to do when we're really social kind of creatures. And I think that one of the solutions is that we need to be working together more as communities, having support networks, whether they're Facebook groups or whether it's support through family units and schools and workplaces. Just would like your perspective on that a little bit, Shah.
Okay. I guess for me, like, I met you 10 years or so ago and came to you for exercise type stuff. And I've always been fairly self-motivated. And like I said before, I've tried various diets and different things and, kind of done things on my own. And I guess for me now, my mindset changed to want to really do something about my weight and my energy and stuff was because I have a child. I want to keep up with him. And I guess sometimes when it's just yourself and maybe people, if you haven't had children or whatever your reason or your why is, it was just, so I just needed to do something now, and I needed to, like you say, gather information and have those people around me that can help me and guide me and support me and, be able to ask questions and definitely create that that culture or environment that you want to be able to make changes. And it makes it easier when you have support around you. And I guess my biggest thing was striking that doctor that I could get that from, and then obviously with you. And I've just made little changes still on my own, but I think it is important to have that, that everyone's kind of, it's not a diet, it's not a, oh, I'm different because I'm doing this kind of thing. It's just making it everyday life, making those changes for the long term, not just a short 8-week program or whatever. My family, my mum and dad have been quite supportive in, making little changes and accepting that I am making little changes with my food and stuff, because it's a big thing. They're on a farm and you eat a lot of bread and biscuits and, just that type of thing. And so me trying to make these little changes, they have been really, really good and supportive in that as well. So, yeah, I think it's really important to have things around you that help guide you in the right way, because it's hard to do it on your own.
I think it needs a bit of a change about how we look at food, really, doesn't it? Because people often feel that they're missing out. That's one of the comments that I get. And often I get asked, how long do I have to do this for?
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, I think we can go out and we can enjoy, I don't like calling anything unhealthy, but we can go out and be relaxed and enjoy sort of more processed foods and some alcohol and enjoy social situations and thoroughly eat and enjoy those things. But then we come back to sort of a normal the next day, and we don't just carry on eating those things all the time. And to me, there seems to be a tendency that every meal has to be special or every meal has to be a treat. And that's something that I've thought for a long time, rather than food is just food and we need to eat it. It's nice if it tastes nice, but it does a whole lot of things in our body that are really important. And those special treats should be really for those special occasions, and then eaten without any guilt and without any beating yourself up.
Yeah. Oh, look, I remember you saying years ago, so you've got to look at food as fuel, Charlene, not as a trick. I'm very much always been an emotional eater. Without a doubt, hands up, I could say, yep, I've been down that path. I do it still time to time. But I definitely, my mindset towards food has definitely changed, and more so since I've had those blood tests done. And this is only in this year, really. And so, yeah, I think, like you say, looking at food differently, and how we feel towards it too, I guess, as well. It's definitely a major player in the individual's, is success the right word? I don't know. of how you go about changing your habits.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting question, isn't it? I think that one of the things about food is that it provides stress release. So, when we get stressed, we start looking for those things that make us feel good.
Yeah.
I think, procrastination, because procrastination can be one of my real issues. And I've learned that procrastination is a way of relieving stress.
Yeah.
So, rather than eating to relieve stress, I procrastinate. And so, but I think the underlying issues are the same. It's still a form of coping and a form of stress release. So we need to find healthier ways to manage it.
Yeah.
So have you found that the food that you're eating has reduced that need, the cravings to some extent?
Yep, definitely. Obviously you gave me some options for different things that I could change. And my main focus was just changing my breakfast. That was my one thing I wanted to definitely change. And I've pretty much stuck to that. And then for me, because I feel that if you start your day right, you kind of tend to follow through the day. And I found that has worked for me. I've focused on making sure that my breakfast is, one of two things that are good for my system, that are going to give me a better setup for the day. And then it's like anything, it just has a bit of a flow-on effect generally, most of the time, So I have still got a whole host of stuff that I still need to adjust and adapt and change, and whatever word you want to use for it, because I think that's another thing, is the words that you use around what you do with your food too, and how you look at it, have a major effect on how much you, I guess, how much commitment you have to what you want to do with your food and your diet as well.
I think it's quite interesting. At the moment, I'm making a video about what's called protein leverage, which is, so protein leverage is the theory that we have to get a certain amount of protein into our body. We need these essential amino acids. And if we don't get enough, we actually go looking for food, and we keep eating and eating, regardless of how many calories the food's got, regardless of how much energy we're taking in. We have this drive, and it's a hormonal drive, that makes us want to keep eating. And so I think, you're talking about breakfast, or for people who maybe eat a bit later in the day, but that first meal of the day, there's a lot of research showing that if you get enough protein into that meal, that really reduces that drive during the rest of the day for just wanting to eat and eat. And you mentioned something to me about, porridge before.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say, I've heard it many a times, people say they'll have a bowl of porridge for breakfast and that's then full till lunchtime. And I tried porridge, making it, and you have the packet stuff, or you add yogurt to it, you add nuts, or you have honey, and you just do all these different things that you see or read about or hear about that, is a healthy thing to do, because oats are great for you. I'd always find myself 2 hours later starving, even if I added nuts or yogurt or, different things. It just didn't seem to work for me. And I couldn't really understand. But then once I had the blood test done and you explained it to me, I was like, that's why it doesn't work for me. It doesn't suit my system. So it was never going to work. And I could have kept doing it. Then every couple of hours, you're just starving because your body's not functioning to its best.
Yeah, and it's wanting that glucose.
Yeah.
It's becoming glucose driven rather than being able to use fat as fuel or use body fat for fuel.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting, and that's a really good point, because I think I kind of think in our diets protein is something that we don't pay enough attention to, and something that we probably should prioritize a lot more. And I don't think there's enough understanding about how much we need to eat and how frequently we need to eat it. We tend to think we can not have much for lunch or breakfast and lunch, and then we have a big feed at night, and that's enough. But that's not how it works in our bodies. And so, at the moment, the videos I'm making are really trying to do a lot of education about protein. And you can get protein from animal foods and you can get protein from plant foods. So, it's not about saying you have to go and, if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, that you have to eat animals, but it's just about concentrating on the source, or concentrating on the fact that you are actually getting enough of a good source of protein. Yeah. So it's a real key for helping shift those brain-driven emotional eating as well. It really does help.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, one of your things was to make sure that I had protein in each meal, and that's another thing that I've definitely done. Is made sure that I've had a decent amount of protein in each meal, and I think it's made a massive difference. And I previous to changing anything this time around, 2-3 hours I'd start getting a bit shaky or lightheaded, like I needed to eat something. But I was obviously just reaching for the wrong types of food. That's definitely changed. I reckon I'm sleeping better.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. I'm sleeping all night. And I haven't done that for a long time. One, because I've got a little person, but also I think my diet has definitely, I noticed throughout the day and, my sleeping at night, a big change in that too.
And what about mood? Have you noticed any differences in sort of mood and at all, or no real changes there?
I don't know. I have to ask other people around me, I guess. I've been, without going into too much detail, I've really struggled with, after having my child, menstruating and all that, I've had quite a bit of what would you call it, an imbalance, but I've struggled with that and PMS and really quite not that it stopped me from getting on with my daily life, but it certainly has been a big hormonal change. But I think I've partly got that sorted, but also with the diet, possibly, I think when it comes to that, that monthly time and you get that, the teariness or the, upset, I think some of that has subsided. Although I guess I'm getting more in tune with my own body as well in many ways.
Yes.
So, I think when I went to the doctors and I got that high blood pressure and the high cholesterol, I was like, oh my God. And I'm nearly 40 and it's like, something needs to change. That gave me, I've never had high blood pressure my whole life. Every time I've gone to the doctors, I've had it checked and, I've never had a problem in it. So that was quite a shock for me. So, when you put everything together and then, then you start looking at your food and then how much that, has had an effect on just me as a person and how I react and not react to stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, I think that's great. You mentioned earlier about understanding your why, and we talked about that a little bit as part of this process and part of a way or a means of staying on track. So, we all go off track. I mean, there's not one single one of us that doesn't have a time when we don't peg out on the wrong stuff or drink too much or, there's hardly anyone that doesn't do that at some stage. And the key is to get back on track as quickly as possible. You know, in the exercise industry, we say never miss twice. You know, don't miss a workout twice. You can miss one, but don't make a habit of it.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to our food to some extent as well. So without going into the details about your own personal whys, do you think spending that time to sit down and figure those out has been helpful?
Yeah, definitely. That was the other thing that you asked me to do, was to have a think about that, and why am I doing this, and you know, what are the reasons. And it was quite interesting once I actually sat down and started writing it. I guess it's just, then you become accountable to yourself as well, a little bit. You did say to me to write down if I ran into trouble, or you know, something wasn't quite going right, what would I do in that situation? I didn't quite get to that, although I guess in my whys it was there in the back of my mind anyway. You know, I've weighed myself, I've taken measurements, and I've been taking photos as well, just as a little bit of a
motivation.
Just a visual thing, and it's there and I can see it, and it's like, it is. I think it's a very important part of it as well, as much as what you choose to eat.
Yes. And I think that congratulating yourself, because we always beat ourselves up as soon as we make a mistake. You know, someone brings us some nice baking and we sit there and we have a couple of biscuits or something and we're like, oh, you know, I'm so bad. Instead of congratulating yourself for all the meals that you eat that are really good meals. And why should you not enjoy a couple of nice cookies or a scone or something now and again?
Yeah. Hey, and I'm a baker. I love baking and cooking, and you know, especially through this lockdown, me and Alistair have been out at my parents' and on the farm, and you know, when everything's done, and actually, I probably find baking quite a stress relief. I enjoy it. I really, really enjoy it. And whilst I have had some of that baking, I certainly have not gorged like I have previously, or what I might have done before. So that's like a real pat on the back for myself as well, because, you know, it's there. And I could just have like 10 biscuits, but I don't. I might sit down and have one with my coffee or whatever, but not every coffee, you know? So it's like you say, and that's what I said before, like it's what words you put towards food as well, whether it's, oh, I can't have that, that's really bad. Well, that's not a positive way to help yourself either, because that's just making it, oh, you can't have that, that's really naughty, you know. Well, actually, you know, we've all got to have, for me, I think we've all got to have, like you say, those little treats once in a while, and it's just not making them every day. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's keeping them in the right balance, isn't it? And if you've got metabolic issues, if you're pre-diabetic or you're a diabetic, and you have to do something about your blood sugar and your insulin and your cardiovascular risk, well, then you might need to go through a phase of getting that under control and reducing those kinds of foods, or what we call bridging foods. You know, find some alternatives. And I think we talked a bit about finding bridging foods. So it's not as bad, but it might not, I don't like using these words, but it might not be perfect, but it gives us, it helps with that stress release, and it gives us a step in the right direction. And I think that's really important as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess that, you know, the good old New Zealand farming family would meat and 3 veg, and one of those veg would always be potatoes or kumara or whatever you want to have. And I just don't have the potato. I'll have always make sure there's broccoli and collie or a carrot or, you know, something else, and I build that up as my other part rather than having potato and a little bit of broccoli and collie. You know, I'd rather just have all the broccoli and collie now, and then my meats and whatever else. And it's just those little changes. Or, you know, if we're having something that has rice, have cauliflower rice instead. And, you know, it's not hard. It's so not hard. but it's just different. It's not your normal, well, not for a lot of people, probably not a normal thing. Oh, cauliflower rice. Well, actually, it's really lovely, and you can make it whatever flavour you want too, so it goes back to that mindset and getting your head around it. I think that's, yeah.
And I also think being able to make less worse choices is what I call it. So, I work with a group of people from the US who tend to have a very high takeaway diet, and they don't really do a lot of cooking at all. And so we spend quite a lot of time looking at how do you go with your mates? They think that's hilarious when I say you're going out with your mates. That's their new... Obviously don't say that over there. That's their new saying. They laugh every time I say that. But, if you're going out with your mates, they're only young people. So if you're going out with your mates and, you're going to McDonald's or Subways or whatever they have over there, how do you make a less worse choice? And, that's something that people often don't think about either. So you can go to McDonald's and, still eat a reasonably decent, a quality meal by the choices that you make. And that way you are still fitting in with your family if you do, if you do a takeout on a Friday night and that's a family thing, or you can... do different kinds of toppings on the pizzas that you'll get, or do salads from Subway or something. So there are ways of fitting in and making those less worse choices, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, like I said, I'm a baker and a cooker, and I'm quite happy to do so as well. But when you do go to the supermarket, it's really hard because there is so much convenience food. There's so many packet stuff that you can just get that makes it easy for people, and it's not that hard to make up what's in those packets, and it's probably 10 times better for you, less all the additives and all that sort of stuff in them. So yes, it is that you can make less worse choices for sure, definitely, in every situation.
Well, I've been thinking quite a lot about how food has changed over my lifetime. So I can remember as a teenager going to secondary school. I went to Rangitai College in Murupara, and it was fantastic because once a week we were given, I think it was about $2.50, and we were allowed to buy our lunch and buy a pie and a cream donut and a bottle of Coke, and it was like the highlight of my week. And then I thought about my children. So once my children started going to school, then we had more, we had little packets of chippies, and we had little roll-ups and muesli bars and things that we didn't have when I was growing up. And they were a normal part of my kids' school lunches. And then now that's progressed even further. And I took a photo down on the local dairy the other day, and I'm going to put it on my Facebook page, but it showed, and it's called Mama's Lunch Pack, and it's $2.50, and it is just absolutely full of plastic processed crap is the only word I can think of it. But you can see, like even naming it Mama's Lunch Pack for a start, as if it was some wholesome sort of food. But you can see why a parent would give their kid $2.50 and tell them to go and buy some lunch. And then we've got this hugely increasing diabetes problem in our youngsters, and also obesity, but more than the weight, more than worrying about the weight is the health consequences. Yeah. And, we're all genetically different sizes and shapes. And we, like you said earlier, we just have to learn to accept that this is the body that we came in.
Yeah.
But we can make that body as healthy as possible.
Yes.
And, you know, because someone might be bigger doesn't necessarily mean that they're unhealthy, you know. But I just think this is going to be so important for our kids in the future.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the other thing, like, Alistair and I know that's one thing I like to sit at the table and eat. And if I'm not necessarily eating with them, because, you know, sometimes they eat a little early for us, I will always sit at the table with him and we sit down and eat. That's one thing I've always sort of wanted to, since he started eating food, is that we eat at the table. We don't walk around eating. You know, we don't have screens, we don't have, you know, watch TV. Well, sometimes you have the screens and the TVs on, but generally we sit and have our meal and we eat together. You eat together and, you know, make it a good thing, not a scattered thing, not a, you know, I don't know. I think that I grew up with that as well.
Yeah, and we did too, you know, and we sat around the dinner table and we always had debates because my dad was always into debating stuff. So, you know, one day he'd be arguing one side of a story and the next day it would be the other side. And so we all engaged in debating and talking about the politics and things like that, which I, you know, or even, you know, what's been going on in your day. And I think that's really important as well. So.
Yeah. Well, even me, like hairdressing, like when I was working in Rotorua and like, you'd be flat tack all day and you'd just eat in the run. And sometimes you'd forget that you'd eaten because you've eaten it so fast and you're not actually sitting down and concentrating and letting your brain and your body realise what you're actually doing. And I think that's a major thing too, you know. You know, you might eat quickly on the run and then, you know, a couple of hours later or whatever, you might think, oh, did I eat? Did I not? Or you just feel hungry because you didn't register that you've actually eaten, you know.
Really good point, actually. And is sitting at your desk eating or...
Yeah, so you're not actually, and it doesn't take that long to eat. You know, I said to the kids the other day, I said, like, you know, if you all sit down quietly and just eat your meals, it's all done out, you know, it's all done and dusted really quickly. It doesn't have to take half an hour.
Yeah.
But all the up and down and the mucking around and, you know, instead of just sitting quietly and just have your dinner. And I know that's, you know, in an ideal world that would be great. But if you can try and instill some of that, and it doesn't take long to sit down and eat, and it's probably better for your mind as well to be able to do that.
And for your digestion. I remember when we grew up, and Dad was always about, all right, well, I need to digest my food before we go and do something, you know, something else. And I think we forget that too. We just leap up and we're off into the next thing, or, you know, we're shoving food in our mouths left, right, and centre without really thinking about and enjoying and savouring the food as well. So I think that's a really important point, Charlene.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I don't know. Any other thoughts you'd like to share with people?
I guess just really reaching out to you. Obviously, for me personally, I was just at that point where I really needed to make a change for me and for my son. And knowing, like, I haven't really focused on the fitness side as yet. I guess for me, part of that is because I know I can do it and I enjoy it. But I have this thing in my head too with the exercise. I like to be focused on it, and I kind of haven't had the time or the space to be able to have that me time to do it and enjoy it, because otherwise I end up getting a bit frustrated. So for me also, kind of concentrating on the food. And you did say to me too, to, you know, not to stress about the exercise. Yes, it would be great, but to kind of get your head around the food side of things and that kind of change. And I'm just blown away with the small changes that I've made that have been consistent so far. So when did was February?
February, yes.
So February, March, April. So for the last 3.5 months or so, I've just made that real conscious effort of focusing mainly on the start of the day, my breakfast, and the flow-on effect that's had to my morning teas or my afternoon teas, and my choices around food that I have at lunch and at dinner haven't always been perfect, but I've made that whole a least worst choice kind of thing in different situations. So it's been really beneficial for me to have you help me and guide me. And I think probably guide's a good word, because I've known you a long time. You know what I can do physically when I want to, and from the exercise side of things, and it all comes together, I think, in the end. But it's been amazing. And like I said, I've been blown away with, obviously I've always wanted to lose weight. Most people are always wanting to lose weight when they think, but me, it was more, I guess, the internal health thing, to get that better sleep and the energy for me moving forward. And I've had the weight loss as a result by changing some very small parts of my day. And it's just, it's given me that boost and that real determination to keep going and making the changes for the long term. I don't want to be doing a diet or a crash diet, or I'm not doing this just for 6 months. This is for me forever now. And I want to be able to show Alistair better choices.
Yeah, I think that's
as well.
Yeah. And it's always a pleasure, Shah, you know that. We've had a lot of laughs over the years.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Some great times. And just for anyone listening, I just want to remind you that on my website, I am making a whole lot of videos, trying to keep them reasonably short so it doesn't take too long to watch them. They're free to everybody, because I really want everyone to learn about food and what it does in our body. And I know for some people they might seem slightly complicated, but just bear with them. You don't have to remember all the details, but just try and grasp the big picture from what they're telling you, so that when you're going out to make food choices, you do have that little bit of knowledge. Or even when you're reading stuff or hearing stuff, and you can go, oh, does that really make sense? Because you've got some actual background to put it into context with. So, hey, thanks, Shah.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sue.
Just another little plug, because I know we're all desperately needing our haircut.
I know. Oh, look, I was just literally starting back, 2 or 3 weeks before the lockdown. So I'm itching to get back. I got a taste of what it was like to be back at work again, and not just being the mum. So I'm working in Whakatane, so out of a salon called Red. But on my Facebook page also, I'll be doing some updates once we know when we can get back to work. So it'll be great. It'll be awesome.
Rather than later. I decided to grow the colour out of my hair, which a couple of months ago, which was probably a good thing, because it would have been even more disastrous by now.
Well, the best thing is that you're not alone in it.
The grey still does shock me.
Embrace it, so.
I'll try and do that. Thanks heaps, Shah.
No worries. Thank you, Sue.
Excellent.